Welcome to this explainer. Think about the last time you heard a siren wailing in the distance. You probably didn't even blink, right? It's just background noise. Well, today we're diving into a deeply unsettling what-if scenario to see exactly how the permanent failure of emergency services would completely unravel the social fabric of Europe. We tend to walk through life assuming that if absolutely everything goes wrong, there's a safety net waiting to catch us. But emergency services aren't just another government administrative function. They're the invisible guarantee that civilization still works. So what actually happens when that guarantee breaks permanently? The thing is, the collapse wouldn't actually start with some dramatic Hollywood-style apocalypse. There are no sirens wailing endlessly or headlines screaming about the end of the world. No, it starts quietly. It's an ambulance that takes 10 extra minutes while a family panics in their living room. It's a fire crew arriving after the smoke has already swallowed half the street and a roof is caved in. It's a police line that keeps telling you they're on the way, but they never quite get there on time. It's that creeping, horrifying realization that the cavalry just isn't coming. So, how does it unfold? At first, everyone just kind of brushes it off as an anomaly, right? You figure, hey, it's just a temporary staffing issue, or maybe the fallout from one unusually bad storm. But inevitably, those delays spread. Regional overloads make waiting the new normal, until finally dispatch centers turn into outright digital war rooms. The operators aren't just taking calls anymore. The entire system is forced to choose who gets help first. They're literally triaging human desperation, which marks the terrible beginning of a permanent overwhelm. Okay, Section 1. Safety becomes a luxury, the Great Divide. Let's get into it. Once the system starts making those completely impossible choices, the public quickly realizes the old world is gone, and a terrifying new reality takes hold. In the old world, emergency response was the great equalizer. A house fire or a heart attack absolutely does not care how much money you have or what neighborhood you live in. But in this new world, safety becomes a luxury product. This sharply splits society between those who can buy immediate private rescue, we're talking private medical transport or armed security, and those who are left relying on whatever scraps remain of the public system, just waiting and hoping. Because when you know help isn't coming, people's behavior changes way faster than any government policy ever could. Citizens are literally forced to become their own first responders. You'd see homes suddenly installing commercial-grade fire suppression tools, and businesses mandating intense first aid and trauma training for everyday employees. I mean, imagine your local homeowners association suddenly having to pull money to buy and maintain a used fire engine. Neighbors would be forced to form informal mutual aid networks just to survive. And while that might sound kind of empowering on the surface, it's actually a glaring sign of a frightened civilization moving backward. A healthy civilization relies on its institutions. A frightened one just learns how to survive around them. Moving on to Section 2, the contagion of failure and the domino effect. This is where we really start seeing compounding chaos hit absolutely every sector. It's a classic domino effect. Hospitals turn into literal battlefields of triage where minor injuries become permanent harms simply because nobody could look at them in time. Fires don't just damage a single room anymore, they burn unchecked, forcing communities to rely on, well, basically untrained, heavily burdened volunteer brigades holding garden hoses. And the police? When they can't respond in time, public trust rapidly evaporates. Small, localized disputes escalate into street violence because people know the system won't arrive to mediate. Organized crime groups would immediately notice and test those weaknesses, stepping right in to fill the power vacuum and driving up fraud, theft, and extortion. Now, what makes this incredibly specific to this region is that Europe's dense interconnectedness actually becomes a massive liability. Usually, sharing roads, rail lines, and open borders is great. Normally, if there's an emergency pressure in one nation, say a huge transport accident, cross-border aid is immediately called in. But when the whole system is permanently overwhelmed, you aren't just sharing help anymore. You're rapidly spilling exhaustion and delay right into neighboring countries, dragging the entire network down together. And then, you throw the climate crisis into the mix, and this contagion of failure drastically accelerates. Every single heat wave brings a spike in medical emergencies, and every flood brings more rescue calls. The real danger here is the zero recovery window. One crisis just rolls right into the next before the first is even finished. This feeds a relentless spiral, driving massive staff burnout, collapsing retention rates, and putting an absolutely crushing burden on the few responders brave enough to actually stay. Section 3. False fixes and burnout. The human toll. So, faced with this cascading failure, you can bet governments and citizens would desperately look to the tech industry to just fix it. And sure, AI dispatch systems, predictive modeling, and autonomous drones can certainly prioritize calls and improve coordination. That's genuinely helpful. But here is the hard truth. Technology absolutely cannot conjure extra paramedics or extra hospital beds out of thin air. An algorithm cannot perform CPR, and a drone cannot carry a patient down 3 flights of stairs. Because at the end of the day, software simply cannot solve a human capacity crisis. Which brings up a staggering human dignity problem. For the emergency workers who are actually left, burnout isn't just a symptom anymore. It's practically the defining condition of their lives. It inflicts severe moral injury on people who entered the field to save lives, only to be forced to watch those lives slip away due to a broken response chain. As one observer puts it, if society asks responders to keep going while the tools of response fall apart, what does that say about how much the society values them? It really forces us to ask how much we truly value the very people we expect to save us. All right, final part. Section 4, the new normal and adapting to absence. Eventually, believe it or not, the unthinkable just becomes routine. This permanent overwhelm fundamentally reshapes both the physical and emotional landscape of the continent. Physically, Europe would reorganize. Urban planning would mandate significantly stricter building codes, and neighborhoods would build their own secure emergency caches of medical supplies and water. But honestly, the most chilling change is the cultural shift. People would replace their relaxed confidence with a guarded, suspicious vigilance. Think about the psychological toll on kids, whose parents would have to teach them to be completely self-reliant and fearfully avoid all risk, simply because a broken arm could become a life-threatening ordeal. Society would literally build a brand new daily routine entirely around the absence of reliable help. Ultimately, Europe would be staring down a really stark civilizational choice. On one hand, we just accept this fractured survival model, adapting to the absence of help and settling into a tiered society where safety is a luxury and the vulnerable are just left behind. Or, alternatively, we summon immense political courage and make massive, unprecedented investments to completely rebuild response capacity. We're talking about funding, staffing, infrastructure, and responder mental health at levels never seen before. It's a solution that requires years of taxing work and definitely doesn't win easy political headlines, but it's the only real way back. Because if society fails to make that crucial investment, everyday life is going to be forever shadowed by one chilling, inescapable question. From the mother sitting up at night with a feverish child to the shopkeeper waiting alone for the police, every single ordinary day will be haunted by this. If something goes wrong, will anyone actually come? As this explainer reveals, emergency services aren't just logistics. They are literally the invisible line between chaos and trust. The health of a civilization really is measured by how quickly it helps the person who has nowhere else to go. So ask yourself, if that invisible line vanished tomorrow, who would you become to survive? Thanks for exploring this what-if scenario with us. Make sure to subscribe for more explainers that question the world as we know it.